As bombs fell on Pearl Harbor, Japanese forces swept across the Pacific. The Philippines, then a U.S. Commonwealth, became a key battleground. In April 1942, the small peninsula of Bataan, on the western coast of the Philippines, became a torturous endeavor for tens of thousands of soldiers.
Let's take you back to a dark chapter in history that should never fade from memory: the Bataan Death March. After months of brutal combat, starvation, and disease, some 78,000 Allied troops, 12,000 Americans, and 66,000 Filipinos surrendered to the Imperial Japanese Army at Bataan. Only hours after surrender, the captives were forced to march up the east coast of the peninsula. Although they didn't know it, their destination was some 120 kilometers away, Camp O'Donnell, north of the peninsula. The route looks like a regular roadway today, but in 1942, it was hell. To imagine it, think of walking from Beijing to Tianjin, New York to New Haven, a journey that takes less than an hour today by train or car. The soldiers had to walk through jungle trails and blistered earth for days. Now picture doing it with no food, no water, no rest, and under a scorching sun. Many suffered from extreme hunger and were ravaged by malaria and dysentery. Some fainted from exhaustion. Those who fell behind were beaten, stabbed, or shot where they lay. Some were tied to trucks and dragged. Others were forced into the sun treatment, forced to sit for hours in the sweltering heat without shade or relief. Filipino civilians watching from the roadside risked their lives to give the prisoners sips of water or handfuls of rice. Some were caught and killed, as were the prisoners who received their help. One prisoner, Albert Brown, survived. Once a star athlete, he lost over 36 kilograms of body weight, dropping below 45 kilograms. After 6 days and about 100 kilometers, the survivors reached San Fernando. There, they were crammed more than 100 at a time into stifling boxcars designed for only 40. There was no room to sit, little air to breathe. Many suffocated before reaching Capas and still had to walk 11 more kilometers to the destination. 5,000 to 18,000 Filipinos and 500 to 600 Americans perished during the march. At Camp O'Donnell, the suffering continued. Of the 9,000 Americans who made it, nearly 1 in 5 died. For Filipinos, the toll was even more horrific. 26,000 deaths in just 73 days. Almost 360 men died per day. On the bones of many captives, the Bataan Death March became one of the most infamous atrocities of the Pacific War, evidenced at the war crimes trials in Manila. General Masaharu Hama, who commanded the Japanese army that invaded the Philippines and perpetrated the march, was tried, convicted of war crimes, and executed. But for those who survived, the march never ended. It lived on, in nightmares, in silence, in wounds that never fully healed.
In 1955, I developed a skin cancer on my lower lip and had my mouth rebuilt because of it. All plastic surgery on my mouth. And it was caused by too much sunshine in the Philippines. We were given what the Japanese called the sun treatment. We were forced to stand in the tropical sun without any hat on, or we couldn't put anything over our head. They wanted us to get sunburned. That was their purpose.
My whole family, my mother became speechless because she was too frightened. She wasn't able to talk for 2 days. And I have 3 siblings who died because of malaria, diarrhea, hunger.
If you didn't walk fast enough, you were killed. If you didn't say the right words, you were killed. And if you were killed, you were either shot to death, bayoneted, or you decapitated. The road out of Bataan is paved with dead bodies of American soldiers through cruelty. And that I'll never forget. I'll never forget it.
Bataan wasn't the only place ravaged by Japanese wartime brutality. From 1942 to 1943, the Imperial Japanese Army built a 415-kilometer supply railway to link Bangkok, Thailand, with what was at the time known as Rangoon, Burma. Intended to support Japan's war campaign, the railway was completed in just 16 months, a job that would have taken normally years. More than 60,000 Allied prisoners of war, Australian, British, American, were forced into labor. They were joined by over 200,000 conscripted Asian civilians, lured by false promises of wages and food. Approximately 90,000 Burmese and 75,000 Malayans worked on the railway. More than 100,000 Malayan Tamils also contributed to the project. The death toll is staggering. Over 90,000 Asian laborers perished. More than 16,000 Allied prisoners of war died. That's nearly 1 death for every 4 meters of railway track. The Asian laborers, often illiterate and without doctors or command structures, endured even worse conditions than the prisoners of war. Their bodies were buried where they fell, unmarked, unnamed, and mostly forgotten. In the post-war years, Australia convicted 111 Japanese officers for crimes on the railway. 32 were executed. Today, the jungle has reclaimed most of the railway track, but the memory of the death railway is etched into the land, in both the marked graves of Allied prisoners of war and in the graves of nameless Asian laborers.
First of all, it's not alive. It was not alive because we were not treated like human beings, of human beings. They treated us, I've often said, to them we were less worth than a worm in the earth. As long as you could stand up, hand a shovel, you were alive. If you could not do it, you died.
Some of the worst beatings were with the pick handles. And another method of torture was to hold a bucket of water above your head, but I was never slapped across the face. That was the worst treatment because it was so humiliating.
I always talk on behalf of thousands of my comrades who have a voice no more. Can I stop for a minute?
The Burma-Thailand Railway, the Bataan Death March, 2 journeys of unimaginable suffering, 2 legacies of survival and resilience, and together, 2 enduring reminders that peace must never be taken for granted, and sacrifice and history must not be forgotten.